As we turn our attention to Unit 2, we're going to be studying both structural and civil engineering. The science of mechanics involves the study of forces and their effects. Two of the common subject areas within the science of mechanics are statics and dynamics. Statics is the study of objects at rest, and dynamics is the study of objects in motion. In a nutshell, statics helps us to understand why things stay still. Statics is the basis for the study of engineering mechanics, and specifically rigid body mechanics. Statics is the study of forces and their effects on a system in a state of rest or uniform motion. Uniform motion means constant velocity. State of rest is also constant velocity, specifically when your velocity is equal to 0. When considering the principles of statics, it's important to discuss and understand Sir Isaac Newton's 3 laws of motion. Forces have the capability of doing 3 things. 1. Moving an object that is at rest. 2. Changing the velocity of an object that's already in motion. Or 3. Deforming the object. As the name static implies, we will be dealing with bodies at rest. Predicting failure and deformation lies more in the field of mechanics of materials, which we'll address later on in this unit. Newton's first law of motion describes the relationship between velocity and forces. It predicts the behavior of objects for which all existing forces are balanced. The first law is sometimes referred to as the law of inertia. Inertia is the tendency to do nothing or to remain unchanged. And this law of inertia states that if the forces acting upon an object are balanced, then the acceleration of that object will be 0 meters per second squared. Objects at equilibrium, the condition in which all forces are balanced, will not accelerate. According to Newton, an object will only accelerate if there is a net or unbalanced force acting upon it. The presence of an unbalanced force will accelerate an object, changing its speed, its direction, or both its speed and direction. Therefore, an object in a state of rest or uniform motion will continue to do so unless acted upon by a net force. Newton's second law of motion describes the acceleration of an object in the direction of the net force applied to it. It pertains to the behavior of objects for which all existing forces are not balanced. The second law states that the acceleration of an object is dependent upon 2 variables, the net force acting upon the object and the mass of the object. The acceleration of an object depends directly upon the net force acting on the object and inversely upon the mass of the object. To represent this, we have the equation force equals mass times acceleration. As the force acting upon an object is increased, the acceleration of the object is also increased. As the mass of the object is increased, the acceleration of the object, however, decreases. It is important to note that mass and weight are not the same. Rather, mass is a quantitative term that describes the amount of matter in an object, whereas weight includes the effects of gravity on the object. An object with stable mass weighs differently on other planets or moons because gravity changes or it does not exist. According to Newton, whenever objects A and B interact with each other, they exert forces upon each other. When you sit in a chair, for example, your body exerts a downward force on the chair, and the chair exerts an upward force on your body, keeping you up. There are 2 forces resulting from this interaction, a force on the chair and a force on your body. These 2 forces are called action and reaction forces and are the subject of Newton's third law of motion. Newton's third law of motion describes this action and reaction pair. Consider an example of the motion of a car. As a car is equipped with wheels that spin, and as the wheels spin, they grip the road and push the road backwards. Since forces result from reciprocal interactions, the road must also be pushing the wheels forward. The size of the force on the road equals the size of the force on the wheels. The direction of the force on the road is opposite the direction of the force of the wheels. Action-reaction force pairs make it possible for cars to move. Buildings, bridges, and other objects that are intended to be stationary are called static structures. When forces or force systems acting on an object are in a state of balance, the object is said to be in a state of static equilibrium. To be in static equilibrium, an object must be in translational equilibrium as well as rotational equilibrium. This means that the sum of the forces in both the horizontal and vertical directions are in balance, as well as the rotational forces that are both clockwise and counterclockwise directions are also in balance. An example of static equilibrium can be seen by placing a book on a table. The book is exerting a force on the table, which the table then transfers to the ground. The reaction forces are opposite and equal, and no motion is created. Hence, the book is in static equilibrium. Again, with regards to translational equilibrium, that is the state in which there are no unbalanced forces acting on an object. Translational can be moved left to right or up and down, so we have to consider both the horizontal and vertical directions. The Greek letter sigma is represented to use summation, which represents sum of the forces in both the x direction as well as the y direction. Those have to balance out or be equivalent to 0. When those forces are unbalanced, that's when we have our catastrophes that take place, as you can see in the two pictures below. In regards to rotational equilibrium, that's the state in which the sum of all clockwise moments equals the sum of all the counterclockwise moments about a pivot point. Again, we'll use the summation symbol sigma to represent the sum of all moments, balancing out. Remember back from section 1.1 of mechanisms that a moment is the turning effect when a force is applied around a pivot. Remember to calculate a moment, it's force times perpendicular distance. Again, if these rotational forces are unbalanced, that means that the object is going to be unstable, and that's when we have our catastrophes that take place. So again, just to summarize static equilibrium, forces always occur in pairs acting on two different objects. Force pairs are going to be in opposite directions, and they'll always have the same magnitude or the same size force. So a force in the up direction has to balance out with a force in the down direction. A force in the left direction has to balance out with a force in the right direction. And any rotational forces have to balance out. So counterclockwise moments have to be balanced out with clockwise moments for static equilibrium to take place and to make sure that our structure or object is stable. To represent a force, we use an arrow that's called a vector. In order to understand vectors, we need to look at scalar quantities. A scalar quantity is a physical quantity that just has a magnitude. Examples of scalar quantities include mass, length, time, volume, temperature, pressure, and speed. With vector quantities, we have both a magnitude as well as a direction. Position vectors, velocity vectors, force vectors, and moment vectors are all different examples of vector quantities. For this particular section, we'll be honing in on force vectors. So what exactly is a force? It's the pushing or pulling interaction of objects. A vector quantity defined by its known magnitude as well as direction. In addition, the point of application of a vector is extremely important. So you can see here this green arrow is representing a vector that is being applied with 45 pounds of force in a direction of 28.8 degrees northeast. When dealing with forces, the units that are included are both the British system of units as well as the international system of units. The British system of units uses pounds of force, lbf, and the international systems of units use newtons. We will be going back and forth between these two interchangeably. So in order to do that, you need to have the conversions between these unit systems. Go ahead and write this down. 1 pound of force is equivalent to 4.48 newtons, and 1 newton is equivalent to 0.2248 pounds of force. As we continue to study structural and civil engineering, it's important to understand that a single force can be replaced by the component forces in both the horizontal and vertical direction if their combination produces the same effect as the original force. So you can see here in the two pictures below, we have force vector A being drawn that's going up and to the right. To describe the components of vector A, we could say that there's a force of vector A in both the x and y direction, as you can see in picture number 2. When we talk about a resultant force, it's a single force that has the same effect as two or more concurrent forces working together. You can see in the first picture, we have 5 pounds of force being pushed to the right, as well as an additional 2 pounds of force being pushed to the right. So the resultant force is me adding those two vectors together because they're going in the same direction. 5 pounds of force plus 2 pounds of force gives me a resultant force of 7 pounds of force. However, in the second picture down below, I have 5 pounds of force being pushed to the right and another 2 pounds of force counteracting that to the left. If I add that up, any force to the right is positive, any force to the left is negative. So I can subtract these two forces since they're working in opposite directions. 5 minus 2 gives me a resultant vector of 3 pounds of force in the right direction.